All right, so here we're going to be taking a look at the very last section here, which is going to be moving average, okay? So this is the last costing method, and to me, I believe this one is the most fairly easiest one of them all, okay? So moving average, okay? So in this case, the formula is all the same except for one content, and that's going to be the to calculate the average cost per item. Now in this case, since we have so many batches of inventory, what's going to happen is that we're going to be constantly calculating the average cost per item, because in this case, right, not only are we dealing with just purchases, we have to deal with the things that we sell as well. So the best formula to put here is going to be the average cost per item. So you're constantly rechecking and calculating the average cost per item, because it does significantly change every single time you sell a product, right? Because every time you sell a product, you have a new total cost and a new quantity. Same thing when you purchase items, right? You have a new total cost and a new quantity. So in this case, right, when we take a look at our inventory worksheet, instead of putting the formula in the total cost, we're going to be placing it into the cost per item. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our first example here, where on June 1st we purchased 100 toys at $1.25 with a freight of $25. Okay, straightforward, right? We pop this number into our inventory worksheet. We get our purchase price to be $125, and then plus 25 gives us $150. Now in this case, right, because the assumption is that if we were to sell anything, or if this is the only batch of inventory that we have, then your first rule of thumb is you should definitely figure out what the average cost per item is, because this is what you have available. All right, so in this case, right, I'm going to calculate that, and it's going to be $1.50 each. Okay, so then on June 3rd, you end up selling 55 toys for $5 each. Okay, so in this case, we are looking at the batch of inventory, right? If we did calculate the average cost, right, we would have to do it again. We would have to do it anyways. So in this case, we only have one batch of inventory, so our only number that we have to use there is going to be $1.50 per item, okay? So in this case, I pop it in there to get a total of $87.50, and I'm going to go ahead and subtract that out. And then I'm going to recalculate my average cost to be, not average cost, but I'm going to recalculate my numbers to tell me that I have 45 items available at a grand total of $67.50. Now, this is where I'm going to be constantly recalculating my average cost per item, because in this case, I sold some items, but it's going to be still $1.50 each, okay? Because now nothing changed between here. So then what happens when I make another purchase of 100 toys at $28, okay? And the freight is 26. So once again, I'm going to pop that number in there, and I'm going to calculate it exactly just as usual, okay? So here, 100 gives you 126 plus $26, sorry, 128 plus $26 is going to give you a total of 154. Now this is where I have to stop, okay? Because now I need to, I have a moving average, right? So this is where I'm going to actually calculate my grand total goods available that I have on hand. So I'm going to add this number, because now in my batch of inventory, I now have 145 items, and it's going to cost me a grand total of $221.50. So therefore, now that I have a new total cost and a new total quantity, this is where my average cost per item is going to come into play. So now I'm going to figure out how much is going to be my cost per item. If I have $221.50 worth of cost, I need to divide it amongst 145 items. So in this case, it's going to cost me $1.52.75. Okay? So looking at this, right? We're disregarding which batch came first and which batch came last, right? Instead, we're combining the two, and as we make our purchases, we combine as we go, and we're constantly calculating our average cost. Hence the word moving average. It's not weighted average, right? It's not where you wait to the very end and then, get your average there. This is a moving average, and every single time you make a purchase or sell something, you're constantly recalculating the average cost. Okay, so then our example here for June 10, okay, we made another purchase of 100 toys for $1.30 with the freight of $27. So in this case, we're gonna pop this number back in. We're going to calculate just as normal, right? 100 times $1.30 is gonna give me 130, plus 27 will give me 157. Okay. So then now, since I have a new purchase, I need to once again combine my totals here to get 245 total quantity at a total cost of $378.50. Okay? So then now, again, I need to recalculate my average cost per item. Okay? So in this case, it is going to be $1.54.48. Okay? Right? Good so far?
Yep.
So then, the next scenario tells me that I sold 120 toys. So instead of having to look for which batch came first or which batch came last, I'm only dealing with one number and one number only, the average cost per item. So in this case, if I sold 120 units, I'm going to go look for my average cost per item at $1.54.48, and I'm going to pop that in there because that's the only number I have there. And that's going to give me a total of $185.39, which, again, I subtract that out, and that's going to give me 125 items remaining at $193.11. Right? And that's it here. Okay? So then, once I got that, that's what I have in my ending inventory, right? They tell me that by the end of the 15th, you should have 125 units left remaining. Okay. So then, what happens if I have beginning inventory? Well, that's pretty straightforward, right? We're going to carry our batch of inventory for $125 for the average cost of, or the total cost of $193.11, which is the average cost of 15448. Okay? We don't care what came first. We don't care what came last. We care about just carrying everything over as a bundle. Okay. So then on June 15, right, we have a total of, on June 18, right, we end up selling another additional 90 toys for $5 each. So therefore, 90. Only number I have there is the 1.5448. And then once again, I calculate what that total is to give me 139.04. Subtract that out to give me a total of 35 units remaining at a total cost of $54.07. Okay. Once again, I need to recalculate my average cost per item. So in this case, it's only $1.54.48. So it's still the same. And then, okay, on June 21st, we end up purchasing an additional 100 toys for $1.32 with a freight of $26. So, pop that number in there, and then we do our usual formula. So the purchase price here is $132 plus 26 to give us 156. Okay, we're gonna add those numbers together to get us a grand total of 135 units at a grand total cost of $212.07, which we calculate our average cost per item to be $1.5708. Okay. Then on the 25th, we end up purchasing another 100 toys at $1.35. Pop that in there. And now we have 235 available with a total cost of $374.07, which we then recalculate the average cost to be $1.5917. Okay. So then once June 27 rolls around, we end up selling 120 toys. So 120 toys at $1.5917 is going to give me a total cost of $101.01. We subtract that out to get us a grand total of 115 at $183.06, which now when I recalculate my average cost per item, it changed by 1/1000 of a penny. Okay, so these significant changes, because once again, your average cost will always change by a tenth of a penny, 1/1000 of a penny, because you have a new total cost and a new quantity. So that minor 10,000th of a penny can make a difference. Okay. So then, last but not least, June 28th, you sold 65 units, giving you a remaining total of 50 toys. So if I sold 65 at $159.18, that's still going to give me $103.47. I take that out, giving me a total remaining of 50 units at a total cost of $79.59, which once again you're going to recalculate, and it's going to be for $159.18. Okay. So, and that is it. Any questions here?
No.
Okay. Chapter review once again. We looked at perpetual FIFO, right? Where we list out our inventory items, and every time we sell or have a cost of goods sold, right, we're looking at the cost per item to be starting from the very top of the list of inventory that we have on hand, right? We're going to eliminate from the top and slowly make our way down to the bottom, okay? And then when we talk about LIFO, right, we're constantly flipping back and forth and we're weaving through until, because we're constantly taking the last batch of inventory that we purchase. But as we keep purchasing our inventory, right, the list of keeps keeps growing, and we just keep taking from the bottom and the bottom until we constantly make our way up to the top. Okay? And of course, the last one I just showed you was moving average, where we are constantly calculating the average cost per item, because every time we make a purchase, new total cost versus a new total quantity. So we're constantly calculating the average cost per item, and it will drastically change as we keep selling our items. Okay. So let's go ahead and dive into my exercise right here, the chapter 8.3, perpetual moving average. Okay. So once again, this is going to be one of the more fairly easier concepts to learn here. All right. So let's go ahead and dive right into our little scenario here, where on May 3rd, we end up purchasing 1,000 units at $3 each on an account, with the freight costing $100. So popping this into my new table here. So this one does not need to require any colors, because we're only dealing with one number and one number only. So let's take a look here. It is May 5th, right? We purchased 1,000 units at $3 each, with the freight costing $100. So I'm going to reformat this real quick. Okay, and then, so what is going to be my purchase price? $3,000. Okay, what is my total cost? $3,100. And then, because it's my first batch of inventory, what is my average cost per item? $3.10. Okay, so this is how I'm going to transfer these amounts over into my inventory. Okay, so again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my information from my quantity. Okay, and instead of making my cost per item in here and then multiplying the two to get my total cost, I'm actually going to copy my total cost here, right? And doing my formula in the cost per item. Because this number right here under the cost per item is going to change not drastically, very, very tinily, when it comes to every time we make a purchase and every time we make a sale. Okay? So I want to make sure that I put my decimal places enough for us to see that very small change. So that's the first thing that we have here, is we have 1,000 units at a total of 3,100. Okay. So then let's go ahead and see what is next. So on May 7th, we end up selling 550 units. Okay. May 7th, we sold 550 units. What's my average cost per item? $3.10. So let's go ahead and equal round this. What is my total cost of goods sold here? $1,705, right? Okay, so this is how I'm actually going to take out my inventory, but also cost the goods, or create the average cost per item. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go right across here, and I'm going to go ahead and do this right here. I'm going to take my 1,000, and I'm going to subtract my 550 to get me a grand total of 450. I'm going to do the same thing to my total cost. So I'm going to take my 3,100 and I'm going to subtract my 1,705. Okay? So that's my new quantity and my new total cost. So in this case, I'm going to run my formula once again in the middle to get me still a $3.10. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this number here, right? Since I don't have this amount anymore, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to block it off because in this case, since I'm going to be carrying the numbers across anyways, right? I don't want that to distract me. I want to keep it so then I don't see that number. So you can either have the choice of making the font white or you can just take the fill tool and just black it out, right? In this case, I'm going to use the black just so then I know I don't have that anymore. But of course, if I reveal it, right, if I make the font white, then I can always see where I started and where I ended. Okay, and this because I also sell reference, that's what's also going to be the reason why I cannot remove this at all. Okay. Now you, of course, you also have the choice where you want to constantly, if you want to keep that number, just that one number there, you can go ahead and do so. But in this case, in this scenario, right, I'm going to be constantly purchasing and constantly selling. So if I can just go ahead and move my average along through on the inventory on hand, it makes it that much easier to be consistent and stay, be able to locate the answer a lot more quickly. Okay, so in this case, I have now 450 units at $1,395. Okay. So then on May 10, we purchased 850 units at $3.25 each, with the freight costing $75. So 850, $3.25, and $75. So we have 850, $3.25, and $75, right, on May 10. Okay. So in this case, what is my total purchase price here?
$2,762.50.
Okay, good. Plus my freight of 75.
$2,837.50.
Okay. So then now I have my new purchase of inventory. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to add this to my 450 that I have available, right? So 450 plus 850 is going to give me a total of 1,300 items. Okay. I'm also going to do that too with my total cost, which is $1,395 plus my $2,837.50 to get me a grand new total cost of $4,232.50. And once again, I have my new average cost to be my 420 442 32 50 divided by my total new quantity of 1,300 to give me an average cost of 3.25577. So this is what I mean by as we keep as we keep adding our numbers, we have a new total cost with a new total quantity. It's going to change the cost per item drastically. Okay, so in this case, there it is. It's now an unrounded number. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to block this section off so I don't get confused on what number to use. Okay. So then let's go ahead and see what happened next. Then on May 12th, we end up selling 360 units. Okay, 360 units. Okay, May 12th, 360 units. Now, what's my average cost per item?
The $3.255.
Good, right? So let's go ahead and calculate. What's my total cost of goods sold if I sold 360 units at $2.25,577?
$1,172.0772.
Okay, so there you go. 0.077277 tells you to round up to 8 cents. So in this case, right, because I'm using the equal round in my formula, right, this ends at 8. So this is very important when you use your rounding numbers because in this case, all my numbers are actually rounded. Okay? The only number that is not rounded is my average cost per item. So once again, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and do my calculation here. If I had 1,300 and I sold 360, I should have a grand total of 940 remaining. Okay? At a total cost of 3,060.42, which then brings my average cost per item to be the same price by $3.25577. So in this case, my average did not change by much. Okay. So then we end up selling an additional 600 units. Okay. It is May 15, and we sold another 600 units. So what's my average cost per item going to be?
That same number, 3.25577.
Good. And that's going to give me a grand total cost of goods sold to be
1953.462.
462. So there you go. That tells you not to round at all. So in this case, there you go. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and update my inventory again. So 940 and I sold 600 leaves me with 340. Okay. With a total cost of 1,106.96, bringing my cost per item to be 3.2576. So here you go. It changed by 10,000th of a penny. Okay. So again, if you're selling units by the thousandth, right, that 10,000th of a penny does make a huge difference if you round up. So in this case, if I round up to 26 cents, right, I lost pretty much 0.5 cents every time. So if I sell 1,000 units, that's $50 I just lost. Okay. Because I made my cost per item too high. Okay, so I lose out on $50 of profit. Okay. So now that I have this, right, so this right here is going to give me, like I've mentioned before, right, if I unveil this, right, it's going to pretty much give me a pretty not much like a run through of how my inventory worked, right? Here I started out with 1,000. I must have sold something, so now I'm at 450. I must have purchased something. Now I'm at 1,300. Then I sold something. Then I sold something, right? So this one gives you pretty much a like a list of your transactions that you could see where your inventory is fluctuating. Okay, and you can also see how drastically your average cost per item is also changing drastically. Okay, so but once again, that is something that I want to make sure I cover. Okay, because I don't want to get confused with those numbers. So right? Next one that we have here. So we end up purchasing another 300 units at $350 with the freight of $20. So we end up purchasing another 300 units at $350 with a freight of $20 on May 20. So my purchase price is going to be
$1,050.
1,050 plus 20,
1,070.
1,070. So now we need to add it to our new to our quantity and to our cost. So I have 340 plus an additional of 300 gives me 640. I take my 1106.96 plus the 1070 I just purchased to give me a total of 2176.96. So then now I need to recalculate my average cost per item, and that's going to give me $3.41.50. Okay? So that brought my average pretty high up because I purchased these items pretty expensive, right? I went from buying them at $325 to jumping all the way up to $350. Okay, so that will also skew your average cost per item. Okay. So now, since I don't have this inventory anymore, I'm going to go ahead and block it off. Okay. So what you're going to be noticing is that the quickest and easiest way to go through this is since you're going to be updating your quantity and your total cost, you could go ahead and drag your formula all the way down in the middle to constantly calculate the average cost per item. Okay. So then May 22nd rolls around and I sold 450 units at $10.25. So May 22nd, I sold 450 units at an average cost of
$3.41.15.
okay, good. So then that gives me a total cost of goods sold to be
$1,530.67.
30.
68. Oops.
That's fine. 67, and then it's probably like, I don't know what the number is, but it's probably like 5, 6 something, right?
Yeah, it's 5.
So here, you will never ever come over into issues where you have to look for a specific half penny or not. Because in this case, I'm rounding only one side. I'm only rounding my cost of goods sold, but I'm leaving my inventory alone because in this case, right, at the end of the day, since I'm typing everything in there or punching in instead of calculating my total cost here, right? The only number I'm actually calculating is just my average cost per item. So in this case, so that is why I don't run into any rounding errors, is because I'm constantly putting in rounded numbers into my table. So if I sold 450 units, I should have 190 left, okay? At a new total cost of $646.28. And of course, I'm going to recalculate my average cost per item, and now it has changed. It is now 3.40147. So it's definitely, it dropped $3,000 3,000th of a penny. Right? So then let's go ahead and see what happened next. May 25th, I end up purchasing an additional 650 units at $375 with the freight costing $50. $350, $375, $600, $650. So I bought 650 at $375 with the freight costing $50. Okay, on May 25th. Let me double check that real quick. May 25th, purchased 650, 375, and 50. Okay. So then, what is my purchase price here?
$2,437.50.
Plus my freight of 50.
$2,487.50.
So then now I'm adding this 190, right, to my 650. And I'm going to now have 840 items left available at a new total cost of $3,133.78. So therefore, my average cost per item now is going to be $3.73,069. So once again, I just take my my total cost of the $3,133.78 and I'm dividing it out by my total quantity, which is 840. Okay, that's all I'm doing. That's all this little cell is doing right here. It's just taking the average cost per item. Okay. So then, May 27, I end up selling 740 units. Okay, leaving me a grand total by the end of May with 100 units left. So sold 740. So May 27, I sold 740 units, okay, which is an average cost of this number. So what is my total cost of goods sold here?
2,760.7106.
2706. No, wait, 27070. You said 706? 706, that will round you up to 1 penny. Okay, so there you go. And I'm going to go ahead and take this amount out. So if I started with 840 and sold 740, I end up with my 100 at the end of the month. Okay, and I'm going to subtract out this number once again too. These two numbers here to get me a total of 37307. And that's going to give me my average cost of $3.7307. Okay, so that one changed by 10,000th of a penny. And that is how I do moving average. Okay, easy enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. It's just I like this one the most just because it's the most easiest one. You don't have to worry about which batch came first. You don't have to use colors. All you can do is just this screen just the way it is, right? Because you're only focusing on one number and that's just your average cost per item. And because the way that I'm organizing it, right, and I'm moving across the board going from left to right, I don't need to keep going up, back, down. You know, I don't need to check where my average cost, or, you know, I don't have to keep looking or locate where my average cost is. It should be the previous cell from or previous row, right? So in this case, like I mentioned before, I find this the most easiest and it's the most common one that a lot of companies use because, again, the idea of having to keep track of every single item, you're better off with just rounding them off by just taking the average of every single item. But again, if you are like a grocery type of store, unfortunately, that would not benefit you at all because at the end of the day, right, you have batches of inventory that expire. You can't expect to sell milk and just average cost of, no, because they all have expiration dates, and the expiration dates for milk, they're fairly close to each other, especially perishable goods, right? You can only leave out your produce and your vegetables at max a week out. And if it's not sold, you have to throw it out. So that's just a better way to keep calculating that kind of ordeal using FIFO versus an average. Okay. So let's go ahead and continue on, right? Because in question number 2, it tells you to continue the problem here.
Teacher,
Yes.
before this second question,
Okay.
I have on the price on May 22nd and May 27th, it's changed from the last price. Please, can you show from this black,
It's
this?
so you said
Yes.
May 22nd to May 20.
7th, the price is changed.
That's because we bought something.
She bought something, so you get a new average for a new average unit cost.
Yeah, so in this case, because, right,
Yes.
I purchased inventory, right? I have a new quantity and a new total cost. And because I increased my average, so from here, right, if I'm going from $3.50 per item to $3.75, already
Yes, that's
right
my
there,
question.
you're jumping from the cost per item is going to increase significantly because look at the price point that I bought my items. I jumped up 25 cents when I purchased my items. So in this case, right, because I jumped up by $25 cents per item, it has also increased my average cost by almost 30 cents. Okay? So because I also have to include my freight, right? My freight is also what's going to drive my average cost up as well because it depends on how much you charge freight for, right? So in this case, right, if I were to just go ahead and just do my cost per items here, right, it's going to give me, let me go ahead and do that real quick. So if I were to go ahead and put in my average cost, right, or my cost per items, right? So here I'm looking at 357 versus 358 at 383. If I were to take the average of that, you have to fall in between the middle, right? So I'm in between the middle of roughly 360 and 390. So that's going to give me about maybe 370, 375, somewhere around there, right? And that's exactly what I have here. I'm taking the average cost between this number and this number. Okay? And the middle number between that is roughly 3.73. But this one's again is going to be calculated more accurately. Okay? So that's why there's a huge gap because we made a purchase. And because the items that we purchased the second time around, or in this case the fourth time around, we end up increasing the cost per item, and the freight also increased it. So therefore, my average cost is going to jump up a lot. Okay, does that make sense?
No, this I mean in the perpetual inventory on hand. I mean on May 20th, the price is the last three numbers or the two numbers 50, and this I have to sell at the same price, not 47. I lost, I think, 3 cents or point something. This three.
Yeah, you lost 3,000th of a penny. So in this case, go ahead,
Yes, yes.
calculate
That's
it.
my question.
Calculate it. Maggie, calculate it. What is 2,176.96 divided by 640? All right, once you calculate that, what's the difference if you calculate 646.28 divided by 190? You cannot calculate it the same because it's not the same. We have a new total cost and a new quantity. All right, if you actually really think about it, right, you cannot, so in this case, right, you cannot cost it the same amount because your difference here is this is a rounded number. Okay, this number is a rounded number, meaning if it's ends in a solid number, like a solid penny, right, you cannot assume that every time you sell something, right, it's going to cost you the same. Because your quantity, right, you're spreading the cost amongst the total quantity that you have. So if you were to calculate it, you're not going to get the same number. You could get a very similar number, like in the very beginning, where, right, when we were talking about how, when we were talking about earlier, right, where we're looking at the very first one, right, because we sold something, this is a rounded number. We end up getting the same exact number anyways because it didn't make a difference. But as you could slowly see here, right, we got 7. Now, if I were to pull this answer over here, right, this number right here, this 377 and the 377, if I pull that number out even further, you're going to see there's going to be slight changes. This one is 0.7692, and now this is 0.7660. So they start changing very, like, because you're taking a penny, right? And you're splitting it amongst the number of quantities that you have. And you can't expect the number of quantities to be the same because you sold stuff. So therefore, that extra penny that you're trying to distribute, right, instead of taking a penny and dividing it by 10, you're taking a penny dividing it by 20. Is that the same number?
No.
No. So that's why the average cost per item is very important for you to keep in mind because this number can change at any given time. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. So let's go ahead and jump right into our next problem here where we have beginning inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and go back and block these all off because we don't need any of these numbers. Okay. So there we are, $100 at 3.7307. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry those numbers across in my new table. So I have a quantity of 100 at a total cost of my, I don't remember what it is, 373.07. And once again, because I want to ensure that my average cost per item is the same, I'm going to make sure that I redo my formula here. Okay. So there you go. On May 31st, right? That is my average cost. That's my beginning inventory. Okay. All right. So then let's take a look at the next scenario. So then June 5th, right? That you purchased 800 units at $4 each, with the freight costing $100. Okay. Okay. So it is June 5th. We purchased 800 units at $4 each, with a freight of 100. Okay. So what is going to be my total purchase price?
Now 3,200.
3,200 plus 100.
3,300.
Good. So then now that I have a new total cost or in a new total quantity, or I purchased something, so now I have to add my batch of 100 to this batch right here. So we now have 900 units, okay, at a grand total cost of $3,673.07. So I need to recalculate my average cost per item, and that's going to be 4.081119. Okay. Okay. So then, let's see what happened on June 7. We end up selling 350 units. All right, at an average cost of this number here, which gives me a total cost of goods sold to be
1,428.42.
good. So again, oops, this number here, right, is what we're going to subtract out from our inventory on hand, right? Because we no longer have 900 units because we end up selling 350. So we now have 550. Okay. Giving me a grand total cost of 24465. So again, I'm typing in all my answers here, or in this case, I'm cell referencing, right? This right here, this number right here is an equal round. So that means if I were to plug these numbers in, right, I know that they cut off at that 2 cents. It's not going to be an ongoing number, okay? So then, let's see what my average cost per item is. So here it dropped by another 10,000th of a penny. Okay? Because I have a new total cost and a new total quantity. Okay? So then June 10 rolls around and we end up purchasing 750 units at $4.25, with the freight costing $75. So 750, 425, and 75. 750, 425, and 75. Okay. On June 10. So what is going to be my purchase price?
3,187.50.
Plus 75.
3,262.50.
Okay. So then now we need to add that to our new quantity to make it. So I have 550 plus 750 gives me 1,300. Okay. Which gives me a grand total of 5,507 So now I need to recalculate my average cost per item. And now because I purchased something at a higher price, right? It has made my average cost per item jump up to 23, from 8 cents to 23 cents. Okay. So then June 12th rolls around and we sold 450 units at $10.50. So, wait, what date was that? June 12th sold 450 units. June 12th, 450 units. Okay. Right, that's my new average cost per item. So then that gives me a grand total cost of goods sold to be
No, 1,906.32.
1,906.32. So again, I'm going to update my inventory to show me that I now have only 850 units left. Okay, at a new total cost of $3,683, which brings my average cost per item to be 4.23627. So this one has stayed the same. So then let's see what happened next on June 15. June 15, we sold another 500 units. Okay. Okay. So that's going to give me a new total cost of goods sold to be
2,118 and 14.
good, right? You have to round up there. Okay. So once again, I no longer have 850 because I sold 500. So that leaves me with 350 remaining. Okay. If I started out with 3,683 cents and I sold 2001 that should now give me $1,482.69. Which then, once again, I need to recalculate my average cost per item because now it lost 10,000th of a penny. Okay? So remember, because the total cost is a rounded number and you're dividing it amongst another number, right? And you're not dividing by the same number. The average cost per item, right? That penny is going to be split up to a smaller amount of quantity. Okay? So there you go. Then it is June 20th. We purchased 600 units at $4.05 each. Okay? And the freight is going to cost you $20. So 600 at 406 for $20. Okay? 600, 405, and 20. Let me double check that. 600 units at 405 with a freight of 20. Okay? So what is my new purchase price?
2,430.
Okay? Plus my $20 of freight. Okay? So then what's my new total quantity?
950.
right? 950. Okay, what's my new total cost?
$3,832.69.
Good. Okay. So then that's going to bring my new average cost per item to drop because look at this. I went from 425 to 405. So again, that will drop your average cost per item. Okay. Okay. So then let's see what has happened next. The 22nd, we sold 250 units. So then that, right, you're going to take the 4.13967, okay, to get my total cost of goods sold to be
1,034.92.
good. So let's go ahead and figure out what my new total quantity is. If I had 350 and I sold 250, I should have 700 units remaining, right? Total cost here to be 2,897.77, which brings my average cost per item to be 4.13967. So this one also stayed the same. Okay? So if you notice this, the less units that you sell, the more the average cost is going to stay the same. But the more units that you sell, from, let's say, example would be like you sold 800 units, that batch of cost per item will significantly change by more than a couple pennies. A couple thousandths of a penny, thousandths. Okay. There you go. So then, on June 25th, we purchased 350 units at $435 with a freight of $50. 350, $435, $50. So 350, $435, and $50 on June 25th. Okay. So then my purchase price here is going to be
1,522.50.
plus my $50 of freight. Okay.
1,572.50.
All right, so then let's go ahead and find out what my new quantity is. So if 700 plus 350 is going to be 1050, right? 2,897.77 plus 1572.50 is going to give you a new total cost of $4,470.27. So then, by calculating my new average cost per item, it's going to be now $4.25.74. Okay. Let's see what the last scenario here is. Then on June 27, you end up selling 550 units, giving you a remaining of 500 units left on hand. Okay. So let's see if that's true. On the 27th, we sold 550 units, okay, at a total cost per item to be the new one, the 4.2574. So that's going to give me a total cost of goods sold to be
$2,341.57.
Good. Okay. So once again, you're going to update your inventory because you no longer have the 1050 minus 550 gives you your 500 units at the end of the month. Okay. You're going to also subtract out what you sold to give you a new total cost of $2,128.70 to now give you a new average cost per item, right? You're going to take your 2,128.20, or sorry, 70, divide it by my 500 units to get a new total average cost per item to be the 4.25740. So this one stayed the same. Okay. Any questions in regards to moving average?
No, it's fairly simple.
Fair.
It's like the heart of LIFO now.
Exactly, right? FIFO and LIFO are a lot more harder because you have to keep track of what came first, what came last, especially LIFO because you're constantly making new purchases, so you have to keep recalculating whichever batch came last. And this one, straightforward, especially if you use Excel. You don't need to worry about split pennies either in this case. You just figure out the numbers and just have your constant formula, just constantly recalculate your average cost. Okay? Any other questions?
No.
No.
Okay. So, if there's